Welcome to the RegTech Association's RegTech Edge No Borders event on regulatory compliance solutions. I'm Deborah Young. I'm the founding CEO of the RegTech Association. I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting and pay my respects to elders past and present, and to offer a warm welcome to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends with us here today, and also a warm welcome to all of you members and guests. Regulatory compliance is an important part of the RegTech family arsenal and ranks in the top 3 risks addressed by the members of the RegTech Association. So I'm really delighted to be here today to introduce this program. Since 2020, over 21,000 people from more than 100 countries have attended programs just like this. And each one of the firms who are presenting today support us through their membership, and this is a right and benefit of that membership. And we could not do this without them, so I would like to acknowledge and thank them very much. And to those of you from the 19 countries that have registered today and will be here online, or will pick up the recording afterwards, and also to the potential 30 buyers that are in the audience, thanks very much for coming. If there's anybody online today who'd like to amplify their brand in the way that you're about to see unfold, please do reach out to Nathan, who will be happy to help you and can share with you the benefits of joining us. Recently, we conducted some research, which we do annually, and we published that via a report called the Industry Perspectives Report. And 80% of regulators who responded to our last survey indicated that they had onboarded either a RegTech or a supervisory tech solution in the last 12 months. And I think that this is sending a clear message to the market that regulators are digitally transforming, both in their knowledge, their digital capacity, their understanding of RegTech, but indeed their onboarding of technology solutions to help them better manage their monitoring. And so if you'd like to read more of those insights, you can check out the Industry Perspectives report that I'll make available for you in the chat. But before we get underway today, there's just a couple of housekeeping items that I wanted to go over. Today, we will be recording the session, and every registered delegate will receive a link. Can I please ask you, unless you are speaking or I've invited you to speak, if you could keep your cameras and mics off, please. Thank you very much. We ask that any or all questions are popped in the chat, please. Don't be shy. We welcome the questions, and I'll ask my presenters to jump directly onto the chat to answer those as quickly as possible. There will also be some polls that come up now and then in the breaks of some of the sessions over the next hour, and we'd really appreciate your input to these polls, as they really help us with the quality and ongoing topics of these programs. And to our presenters, I'd respectfully ask you not to go over your allocated time, and that just ensures that we can get to the end of this 1 hour and everybody gets the same opportunity. We have 6 RegTechs presenting today, but before we get underway with that showcase, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Peter Deans, who's going to give us an overview of the current regulatory compliance landscape. Peter is a former Chief Risk Officer and retired from executive life in 2019 after a financial services career of over 32 years. Peter is today an industry-leading risk management and strategy advisor through his firm Not Without Risk Consulting. Peter is also currently a non-executive director of NerdWallet Australia, an equities trading platform called Trade for Good, and indeed a director of the RegTech Association. Peter is also an advisory board member for several fintechs and startup companies. Welcome to you, Peter, beaming into us from Bali, having a holiday. So we appreciate the fact that you've been able to make yourself available. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Deborah, and as always, great to be participating in these events, and welcome to everyone who's here live and watching this later on the video. it is true. I'm in Bali at the moment, and it's quite interesting because the few minutes I'll have as a bit of a warm-up act, I think, for the RegTechs to follow, is very much what I'd call, yoga for the RegTech minds or risk management minds. The six mega trends, which I have shared once before, and interestingly, they really haven't changed in the last 12 months. And I think just a couple of the points I touch on will sort of hopefully resonate with everyone in understanding the drivers that are, I think, creating this fantastic opportunity for, businesses, whether they're financial services or outside financial services, to leverage off the smart technologies which are coming at us rapidly from the RegTech sector. I'll just quickly run through each of the six mega trends, maybe just go on to the next page. There is no particular order with these, but I think it's fascinating with what happened last Friday with CrowdStrike and the knock-on effects to Microsoft. It has really highlighted just how interconnected businesses and communities and economies are in this technology-driven world. Highlight in the second paragraph there that it's risks and opportunities, and there's no doubt that the risks were front and center last Friday, and it's not the first event which has driven global consequences which were, I guess, not anticipated or not seen, and some of the industry folk have sort of called these fourth party dependencies. I'll try and put the balance in the discussion here, though, that there's great opportunities from this interconnectedness. And again, I think if we look at the RegTech community and the startups that the association supports and has as members, a lot of them are gaining customers in jurisdictions all around the world simply because we are in this more interconnected world. As I mentioned in the last point, it is a double-edged sword in your home markets for incumbent players. The technology advantages mean it's a little bit easier to enter new markets. I'll just jump onto the second point now. Yeah, ESG, and again, it's been interesting in the last 12 months, and obviously what's going on in the US at the moment with the election cycle over there. ESG would appear to be ebbing and flowing, waxing and waning a little bit, but I think there's no doubt that some of the core components of E, S, and G are not going away, and I think it's increasingly becoming a regulatory requirement for particularly larger institutions, and it already is for financial sector firms to actually be, reporting and disclosing the ESG profile, and then, as a result of that profile, looking to better manage the profile. There are lots and lots of RegTechs now which are providing solutions in the E, S, and the G pillars, as well as collectively E, S, and G. A great opportunity, notwithstanding some of the political spin that you may hear. Moving on to item 3, and I will whiz through these so you can quickly get on to hear from the 6. Stakeholder demands for greater transparency and accountability. Again, I think from reporting and disclosure perspective, it's becoming increasingly important for all businesses, whether you're publicly listed or not. And I think we also see a lot of small to medium-sized private businesses having to really understand what sorts of disclosures they may have to have during the vendor procurement processes with their customers or potential customers. Moving on to item 4, page 4. And I think this one hasn't gone away. There's increased financial and regulatory downside for not getting it right, and whether it's a regulatory or social license to operate, RegTech solutions and risk management practices are really looking to manage and mitigate that regulatory and financial downside. Moving on to page 5. Yeah, and I think again the double-edged sword again it comes to the fore here, and I know we'll talk with a few of the presenters today around data and cyber. Again, it's becoming increasingly important that no matter what size of business or what industry you're in, you must have a cyber security strategy. You must do whatever's necessary to protect the data and protect your reputation. Moving on to 6. Yeah, just finally, and I think this is always what I call the good news slide a little bit, is that this new technology-driven era that we're in, there are lots and lots of new solutions coming forward, every day, every week, every month. I think again, some businesses are probably just a little bit overwhelmed. How do we choose? And I know that's a big part of the RegTech Association, is to help sort of explain some of the verticals within the RegTech community, because there are lots and lots of new firms, lots of new technologies and advances. AI, of course, we could have a session on that alone. So exciting times. Hopefully that has stretched the minds a little bit, left you a bit to think about, and I'll hand back to the six presenters.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm now delighted to invite Steve from Ruleguard to come to the stage, and I'll just call out the rules of the game, because we're going to do this in rapid fire. So each presenter has 5 minutes. At the 4.5 minute mark, my image will come up on the screen, and if you see my face, that means you've got 30 seconds left in your presentation. Thank you very much. Steve from Ruleguard, I'm going to start your time now. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Deborah, and thanks all for joining us here today. Great opportunity for us. I'm going to just talk through our use of AI, and particularly generative AI within Ruleguard, and how we've sort of gone through that process and some of the lessons learned. So it's applicable for our particular problem space in media screening and name screening, but it's probably more applicable for some of the other use cases you'll see and be exposed to over time. So if we jump on to the next slide, thanks. So just to call out our mission, great motherhood and apple pie, but what's interesting there is that we do have both government and commercial clients. We originally merged out of national security in the UK and still have a pretty extensive bunch of clients, both in the UK, but also in Australia. I spend a lot of my time with intelligence clients in country here. But what that has done is it's introduced a bunch of commercial clients. So next slide, please, Nathan. And there's sort of an interesting mix of people that have started to recognise the benefits of how we approach data fusion on a large scale and how we go about doing things like entity resolution and risk classification. So we've got a combination of clients that use us both for, KYC, AML sorts of use cases, the likes of UBS, Nomura, and the other banking type clients you'll see in there, and a bunch of people that use us also for supply chain analysis, the likes of SpaceX, Salesforce, AstraZeneca, and Shell. All right, so next slide, please, Nathan. This one here is just to show that, Gen AI, you've probably seen some of these in the media. Awesome capability, doing some fantastic things creatively, but unpredictable. The Vikings prompt was something that came back from Google's Genesis program, and not to say there might have been some demographically dispersed Vikings over time. It's probably not the expected return set, and it sort of factors into some of the parameters put onto AI when it's actually trained to try to be creative. You'll see how the shot there is interesting in terms of, the girls in the shot. You've got an interesting number of fingers. You've got a really interesting looking camera there, and you've got this sort of blending of, tattoos blurring out, but also, a tattoo that looks a lot like a necklace. So interesting in terms of capacity to be creative, but very unpredictable in terms of what it does. Next slide, please, Nathan. So what we've historically done is run a lot of AI in our analytics processing chain. So we've got quite a traditional AI model in terms of how we move through things and how we can actually resolve large amounts of data, so up to 3.5 million media articles a day, and process them into a series of combined content we call risk profile. So if you jump to the next slide, Nathan. A risk profile from our perspective is this collection of data from all those different sources. So we've got the news in there, we've got some sanction screening, but the idea is it's very constrained and it's already been validated by our AI to make sure it's particularly pertinent. So if we could jump onto the next slide, please. And why that's particularly good, and this is some validation we did with one of our clients where they came up with 77 entities of interest on the left with the traditional model in terms of going through an analyst to do that adverse media screening. Those names brought back over 82,000 media articles that had to be searched through, whereas from our perspective, we'd already grouped all of that together and pulled out the risk element, so it dropped down to 685. So condenses it significantly, and it also meant that the number of positive hits was actually higher because they found more of the 69 risk elements from the risk profiles, as opposed to 65 from the general group of media articles, just because you're not searching in such a bigger haystack for that needle. So I'm going to have the next slide, please, Nathan. So this is the first instance of generative AI that we've leveraged on top of that existing risk profile pipeline, which is the typical one you see. And if your kids have explored ChatGPT to write their homework for them, this is the classic use case. So with all that data that we've grouped into a risk profile, the idea is here, we're trying to trim it down and let the Gen AI run a summary that an analyst can read and much more quickly identify, is this an entity of interest, but also maintain all that notation out to where the data's come from. All right, next slide, please, Nathan. And this is the other use case that we've been using Gen AI for, which is the idea of co-pilots. And you've probably seen quite a bit of this in the press. The idea here is that we get the chance to leverage a lot of the risk profile work that we already do. So a lot of that understanding around rules and models to get things done, we actually can pre-train the model quite extensively to make sure that it's making much more expected decisions and supporting decision-making in a much more effective way. All right, final slide, please, Nathan. So that is me done. But I think the lesson here is that what we found, I guess, is that leveraging generative AI on top of constrained data sets and rule sets makes it much more effective and much more predictable in what it's going to do. Awesome creativity, but a little bit of a concern in our part of the world in terms of what that creativity can leverage its way into in terms of unpredictable results. All right. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. And I invite you, if you've got any questions for Steve, please pop those in the chat. And Steve, if you wanted to add a link to your website, perhaps in the chat, or even some links to thought leadership or anything, any other materials that you have, that'd be great. Time to do it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next up we have Matthew from Ruleguard, all the way from the UK. Your time starts now, Matthew. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for myself. Thanks very much for inviting me here to talk to you today. My name's Matt Bruce. I'm the platform director here at Ruleguard. So that means I look after the development changes that we make to our Ruleguard platform and the customer experience part of our business as well. As a RegTech from the UK, I'm going to do my best to give you really an overview of Ruleguard and the sorts of things that we offer, although I'm going to have to keep that very high level to keep to the running time that we're allowed this morning. So perhaps if we could kick off, and next slide, please, Deborah. So just a quick introduction to us then. We're a UK-based RegTech. Most of our customers have historically been from the UK. This is very much now a changing landscape for us, though. We have customers in Europe, the US, Asia, and Australia using the platform today. We are a RegTech. Our firm is focused only on financial services compliance. That is the entirety of our business and our technology. And our existing customer base includes really household names from wealth managers, investment firms, banks, other areas. You can have a look at our website to get a sense of some of the names and the case studies that are on there. We are a 100% software as a service. So Ruleguard is a web app, access to a browser. And where we try to differentiate ourselves is a focus on, firstly, mapping and documentation, on this idea of securely sharing relevant information with, let's say, third parties, of being highly configurable to suit our customers' use cases, and in having a huge focus on evidence and proving compliance. Next, please. In a nutshell, we describe Ruleguard as an end-to-end compliance platform. And I always like to use this phrase, from rules to reporting. If we can move straight on. Thank you. So you'll find that rules to reporting philosophy even in the main menu of Ruleguard when you log in. That's what we're looking at here, with all of the different elements of our solutions falling under these headings. And this represents the end-to-end compliance journey, at least as it is envisaged by Ruleguard. So those are starting with rules and requirements. So what do we have to comply with? Moving on to control environment, documenting how we comply, and so on, going through the rest of that journey. I don't have time to take you through all of those areas today, but I do want to show you some screenshots of the platform in action so you'll get a sense of how that all works. Next, please. Thank you. This is a mapping screen. where we're organizing some compliance information. So in this case, we're dropping risks into a taxonomy or a framework of risk based around different features of those risks. So for the example here is grouping by geographical location. All of the data that you organize in Ruleguard can be grouped into multiple frameworks or taxonomies in this way. And the reporting can then work top down or bottom up, meaning that you have a very rich database of information that you can then query in any way that you like. Next, please. Thank you. So requirements and obligations, such as rules from a regulator, can be brought into Ruleguard, and it offers some comparison features of when those change. And we offer updates and changes tracked from various regulatory sources. Next, please. Thank you. And this is a zoom in on some of the record keeping and audit features that allow you to store and understand how your data is changing over time. So this is some control documentation and the sort of file versioning features baked into that as well. Next, please. Solutions in Ruleguard come with customizable workflows like this one. So you can manage the life cycle of things like complaints, conflict of interest disclosures, the product governance lifecycle all in one place. And of course, when this happens, you're always linking your processes back to the rules, risks, and control environment information that you maintain. I mentioned that we have a huge focus on assurance, in other words, proving compliance. If we can move to the next slide, please. A large part of that assurance in Ruleguard uses our events system. So events are how you capture point-in-time information. So that could mean a control review where you're gathering information about effectiveness and proof that you're doing regular reviews. Or it could mean operational checklists done by a business function. So where you ask the individuals doing the work to confirm that they are, following due process and completing their tasks on a daily basis. Next, please. These are some of the screens that people doing Ruleguard events would see. They can be asked questions about what they've done, and then this is saved forever and goes into your oversight and reporting. And I think final slide, please. Thank you. And on the reporting side, there is a huge amount of data that can be extracted out of the platform, either via pinned views, a dashboard and visualization builder, and integration with tools like Microsoft Power BI as well. Ultimately, the aim of it all is to give you a complete repository of your compliance response, mix that with some hard facts from the attestation and task systems to give you confidence that the firm really is doing what it ought to, and that you can prove that when it comes to audit or regulatory interest in your firm. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Matthew. That's a heart starter for first thing in the morning in the UK. Thank you very much. And likewise, if you wanted to pop onto the chat and put some your web link or what other information you would like, that would be great. So it's now my pleasure to invite Aditya from Hukum Online in Indonesia. Thank you very much and welcome. I'll start your time now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Deborah. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Jakarta. Good afternoon. So we are now presenting the hukumonline.com. Please, next slide, Nathan. Hukum Online established since 2000. We are almost 24 years old right now. These are our portfolio. So you can see that some of subsidiaries and another portfolio of our products. So let me explain the justica.com. This one is a company that addresses various types of legal problems, including business contract, employment, and more. So Justica assists you in obtaining legal guidance and clarity from credible legal consultant partners. Justica actually services some of issues like legal consultation by phone or by chat, and then also face-to-face consultation. Another thing is creation and review the legal document or contracts. Another our portfolio are easybiz.com. So easybiz can support you to establishment of your company, and then business license services, and then permit package, and also for the foreign investment here in Indonesia, let's say trademark registration and maybe virtual office services. Next slide, please. So we at Hukum Online not only work for the commercial side, but also we are the one-stop legal solution for the legal and professional. So we are also support the citizen, our environment. We are also give the social impact. Next slide. We are the largest B2B company in Indonesia here for the legal ecosystem. We have more than 107,000 clients right now, and then more than 30,000 total user. Next slide. Okay, so as we all know that the law regulated all aspects of our human life, everyone must know the laws. And here in Indonesia, I think we are one of the most complex jurisdiction in APAC region. Next slide. Thank you. So this is the change in proceeding at the rapid pace of the regulatory. Our president, Mr. Jokowi, said that there are around 42,000 overlapping regulation. So sometimes we at Hukum Online also face these challenges from our clients. Next slide. And this is also the regulatory compliance challenges, number of regulation, and then the extraction process of the regulation into obligation and sanction. It is the critical things that we would help you to make it easily and more quickly. Next slide. So what to do? We have one solution that called regulatory compliance system. With this platform, you can comprehensive compliance management by provide the regulatory database in Indonesia covering all level from the central to regional. And then you can also monitoring and fulfillment all the legal obligation, and the auditing process, it is more easily because it will streamline with your unit or division or department. Next slide. Okay, this is the features of our regulatory compliance systems. The most interesting thing is we have the comprehensive compliance auditing process, and then the integration with the Pusat Data Hukum Online or the data center of Hukum Online, which are consist of more than 200,000 regulation right now. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the stages of the implementation, and I would like to highlight the extraction process because it is what our legal client and compliance team actually difficult to do. The extraction process maybe needs to take them 2 or 3 weeks to read and extract all the obligation into the sanction. So with this implementation, we can help the extraction process to finish the content with the RCS function. Next slide, please. Okay, these are our trusted client or partners. Some of them come from the financial industries and then the mining and energy sectors. And also some of them also come from the telecommunication and technology. Next slide, please. Okay, these are some testimonials. I think you can next slide, Nathan. This one of the compliment we get is the automatic content update feature. So the regulation will automatically update when you are subscribed. So thank you. Happy to connect with all of you. You can reach me or our company free through this link. Thank you, Debbie. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Aditya. And just same goes, I think some information in the chat is awesome, but also just to show the breadth of the different industries that can benefit from great RegTech solutions. Thank you so much. So I'd now like to welcome Jeff from Kinatico to the virtual podium. Jeff, and I'll start you off with your time now. Do you have your camera on?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. Okay,
Thanks,
your
Deborah.
time starts now.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate the opportunity today. For the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to take the group through a good understanding around what Kinatico do today in the simplifying of the process that we go through in managing data compliance for organisations. Next slide, please. Standard disclaimer. Next slide, please. So just in an introduction of Kinatico and what we do, we are the Know Your People technology company. We help employers such as organisations to manage their workforce, staff, contractors, whatever it may be, to meet the regulatory compliance needs within their organisations. Now, that can range anything from regulatory to company policy to procedural to HR compliance to employee behaviour, whatever it may be around compliance. It really depends on the client's needs. A bit of history, 70 plus years experience in this space for the organisation. We're ASX listed with a ticker code of KYP. We have offices across the ANZ region. We do more than 900,000 credentials on an annual basis, and we have pretty much a global footprint. And as you can see there, we're across most countries. Next slide, please. If you could say a picture is worth 1,000 words, this slide pretty much depicts what we do today. So we help organisations simplify the management of workforce data. A classic example today that we see with most organisations is the image to the left of this slide. Organisations that have more risk around compliance than control. They are working through hack type solutions, whether it's rostering tools, workforce management tools, even Excel, or somewhat of a hack of all. They've got a whole lot of risk that sits around their business today with things like no reminders, no alerts, incomplete audit trails, and they're doing all of this through a manual type function. What we do at Kinatico is we come into that person's organisation to understand their requirements and their needs. We help them reduce and streamline that compliance admin through putting in faster and easier hiring and onboarding processes. We help them with the end-to-end compliance of employees within their business. And we also, as an output of that, in minimising the compliance risk, we help increase the visibility in offering up data and analytics. Next slide, please. This slide here really depicts the stages that we sequentially move through to manage every stage of the employee life cycle. It's quite layered, as you can see. I'm not going to go through step by step in the time we've got, but our goal is to support any organisation with whatever they want to be compliant to within their business, whether it might be across from the ELT all the way through to the front line of their organisation, and they'll have different compliance needs for different roles, different functions, and potentially even in different geographies. And that's one of the outcomes that we look to fulfill with our clients as we speak to them about their compliance needs. Next slide, please. Our solutions, why organisations choose to work with us. We look at best practice compliance for their organisation so we can eliminate that manual work that they're working through today and all that double handling that they have regarding the admin that they've probably built up over a number of years. We get into seamless screening so they can start that life cycle of compliance with their employees or their contractors within their organisation through our partner network, whether it's through ATS systems, HRS systems, HCM, LMS, whatever it may be. We're well integrated across the network. We're government accredited, and as we know today, you need to be ISO 27001 certified to be relevant in market. Next slide, please. A quick example, won't go into too much detail. A company we have worked with of recent times, which is Batcare, helping them solve the challenges that they've had in getting to automation based on all the changes that happened in the aged care sector in the last probably 3 to 5 years. In the aged care space, being compliant and be relevant to the regulatory needs you need to be is key. Here's an organisation we've actually moved from a 91% compliance to 99%. Next slide, please. And just to finish off, this just gives you an understanding of our a sample of the stable of customers that we've got today. Of recent times, Kmart, Target, NBN, VBA. We've got a strong footprint in government, but I think as Peter touched on at the very beginning of this presentation, the one thing we're seeing today is that need for a SaaS type solution in market, which is where we somewhat fit. Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks very much, Jeff. And once again, we're seeing the very rich solutions that make up our RegTech family. Thank you very much. I am now delighted to ask Michael from LexisNexis Regulatory Compliance. Michael, I'll start your time now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for making the time to join us today. My name is Michael Nelson. I'm joining you today from Ghana Land in South Australia. Today, we're going to be looking at the LexisNexis Regulatory Compliance solution. Next slide, please. So one of the key issues that we see people who are working in compliance face has been, I think, alluded to already by a number of the speakers. There's still a lot of manual focus on dealing with obligations registers and the ways in which organisations interpret those and then respond to regulatory change. One of the key issues I think that we see is currently on the screen now. There is a huge amount of regulatory change across Australia in any given year. Here you can see it was around 5,000 in 2023. And as you can see also on the screen, that's far from an outlier. There's a huge amount of change on an ongoing basis. And I don't think that Australia is unique in that regard across the countries that I think are dialing in today. Everyone on the call would be familiar with the problems associated with staying on top of what your obligations look like. Not just what they look like today, but also in response to that change, how you interpret what changes have landed, whether you deem them appropriate to adopt across the organisation or not, and then how you communicate the effect of those changes to your colleagues in different areas who may not necessarily be alive to the changes that they need to be. Next slide, please. So the way that people have traditionally done it is by themselves. People have either looked to a panel law firm or looked to internal teams to stay on top of that constant flow of regulatory reform by subscribing to different emails, attending peak body events, looking at how lawyers are interpreting the content, attending industry webinars, subscribing to professional associations and so on, building that all into an Excel spreadsheet, sending that across the organisation and hoping that you've caught everything, you've properly understood everything, and your colleagues probably understand what they need to do as well. And as you can see, and this is only a snapshot of the different kind of information streams, that's far from a harmonious approach to content. What you'll have is different views, different organisations' priorities about the way that they interpret reg change. You'll never get one clear view as to what the changes are and what they mean for you. And that's where the LexisNexis Regulatory Compliance solution comes in. Next slide, please. So when you do it yourself, there are obviously gaps. When you take the issue out to a panel law firm, there are also elements that they might be able to respond adequately to, if nothing else. They're very, very good at looking at the law, very, very good at creating an environment that gives you a sense at least of what compliance sources, what legislation or potential regulation you need to be looking at, and what kind of regulators are paying attention to you. But again, what you get is a response to the brief that you provide them with, and inevitably, it's a static register. The solution that we provide picks up not just the solution to what your obligations are today through a register, but a register that's updated on a regular basis. It's authored by people who work at the law firms quite often that the panel law firms that people go to source. We provide the content in a way that is actionable and clear. Next slide, please. So here's a snapshot of what the product does, and I look forward to anyone who would like to get in touch with us afterwards for a slightly more detailed view than we can provide in the 5 minutes allocated today. We've got north of 90 modules. In fact, it's well over 100 now in Australia, New Zealand, and a variety of other jurisdictions, and that content's being constantly updated. And when I say module, I mean it's an obligations register that reflects the obligations around a given topic, whether it's anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing, whether it's corporations, whether it's banking, whether it's an AFSL license, or whether it's other similar sorts of licenses in other jurisdictions. The obligation registers capture all of the obligations that are entailed in those sorts of activities. It's supported by an alerting solution that provides you with guidance as to what those changes mean, written by experts and available through a variety of different content platforms. Next slide, please. One of the key benefits, as you can see, is the time that you spend having an FTE work on this means that that FTE can be better deployed. Next slide, please. And of course, the key part to it is once you get the registers and the alerts, you aren't left to yourselves. There's a thorough-paced attempt to understand what your needs are, to provide you with guidance and support as part of the contract and not an additional fee, that understands where you are, where you'd like to be, and what we can do to support you. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that's been useful, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. We appreciate that 5 minutes is not very long. It puts you under a bit of pressure, but thank you very much. And last but definitely not least, I'm now going to invite Craig from Battleground. Thank you very much, Craig. I'll start your time now.
Thank you, Deborah, and thanks for having us here today. So Battleground, resilience, software and consulting services. I'm the CEO and founder. I've been doing business continuity, crisis and risk management for 20 years. And about 7 or 8 years ago, got tired of doing the consulting work manually, so started to build systems around what we do and how we do it. And so Battleground today, as we like to say, is 2 parts of the brain. It's consulting and it's software to do all of that work and to help you be more resilient in today's battleground. So next slide, please. When we think of organizational resilience, we think of it in 4 parts. You've got your emergency management, how you manage the emergency services, your compliance around evacuations and things like that. You've got your IT disaster recovery, looking at the ability of IT to recover. Was put into good use last week with CrowdStrike, and we'll talk more about that. You've got your business continuity planning, managing the impact of a disruption on your business. And over the top, you've got your crisis and incident management. So how does your organization respond to a big incident or a big crisis? And communication in the middle there is key to all of it, underpinned by your risks. You need to have all 4 of those areas functioning, and you need to understand the risks, controls, and action plans associated with those 4 to be a truly resilient organization. And we know, next slide, please, that there are a number of regulations in place around the world that dictate this. And our goal is to take compliance from being just a tick the box exercise to something that can be interesting, easy, and really help you to become more resilient. Because as everyone else has mentioned, and as Peter mentioned at the start, that the risk management landscape and the RegTech landscape is changing. And there's so much movement in that having the right people around you and the right software platform can make it much easier in these changing, challenging times. Next slide, please. So what we've developed through our consulting and with our clients is a platform that allows you to do all of your resilience need from one screen, underpinned by what's called a BIA or business impact analysis, which is about understanding your key business processes and what the time criticality of those. So how quickly do we need them when something goes wrong? And what are the dependencies that those business processes rely on, such as your IT apps, your service providers or third parties, or your internal dependencies. How does information flow internally? So when something goes wrong over here, you understand the impact down the line as well. So Battleground and the modules that we have are all about understanding the business impact. So you've got your service provider management, IT application management, response planning, plans in your hand. So when something goes wrong, you know what are your business continuity plans? What are your crisis or incident plans, your IT DR plans, in an app that enables you to use that offline, online, outside of your own IT environment. Communicating with your staff in real time so that you can alert them when something's wrong via SMS, email, push messaging. So again, if your environment is down for whatever reason, that you can still get in touch with your staff and let them know what's going on. And exercising these different scenarios that come into play. We've all seen hacks. We've all seen IT outages. Even last week, as I said, if you had the ability to simulate those and exercise those online in a safe platform, in a safe way, that would be great. Well, our simulation module enables you to do that. And then if we look on the right, you've got your risk management, your controls, your assurance, and incident management. So like any other GRC platform, except very simple and tied together in your BAAs. And then bringing that all together, so when an incident hits, you can alert your staff and let them know. If you can fast forward a couple of slides, please. Really, when it comes down to it, everything you need in one screen, connected, simple to use, and always up to date because of the work we do, leads to the software development. Next slide, please. So thank you. You can learn more at our website, which I'll paste. Be in touch, and you can book a demo with us. Thank you so much, Deborah and Nathan.
Thanks very much, Craig. Really appreciate that, and appreciate all of those wonderful presentations. I think everybody has put something up online. So please do feel free to go to the chat to learn more about those companies. And of course, do actually reach out and do that demo with them. This is the idea of these programs, to bring that accessibility and connectivity between buyers and the people that have the solutions. Really appreciate it if you could also just complete our poll there. Very, very important for us to measure our effectiveness. I just wanted to say a few words about some of the things that we have coming up. There's a couple of things I want to share with you. On the 7th of August, only in Sydney, regrettably, but in Sydney, we are playing a role with a delegation from India who are visiting to tell us all about a new precinct that has been built in India called Gift City. There's some information on our LinkedIn page if you'd like to learn more about that. But it is going to be a new financial precinct in India, and it's very exciting. Opportunity, if any of our members are thinking about expanding into India, do take a look. There's also an opportunity for those of you that are based in Sydney that we are running a roundtable with the Indian Financial Services Centre delegation in a couple of weeks' time. And Nathan can put our email address up on the chat, so please do get in touch with us about that. Then in a couple of weeks, and you'll also notice just by the showcase that we've just done for you, you can see the breadth and you can see all the countries that our RegTech solutions are coming from. And so our next RegTech Matters 101 program is actually going to host a regulatory organisation out of the United Kingdom called the Institute of Regulation. And this program is going to showcase government applications of RegTech. And so taking a little pivot away from financial services and actually talking about cross-sector regulators and their needs in the RegTech space. The Institute of Regulation are doing absolutely amazing work in the UK by bringing together really diverse regulators to create a forum, and aid dialogue, and it's so that they can share best practice across their operations, including technology and including RegTech, which, as all of you will know, we take the view that it is not just RegTech for financial services. So that is our RegTech Matters program. Please do register and come along to that. That is going to be great, and it'll be fantastic for you to meet Marcel. And then last but not least on the list is our RegTech Edge No Borders Financial Crime Solutions. program. Today, I was at a financial crime event to learn what regulators and regulated entities are thinking in terms of AML and CTF. Actually, half of the agenda, I must say, was dedicated to fraud and scams. And whilst we have seen evidence that that's kind of separated out from the mainstream AML, CTF, it certainly took up half of that program today. So the hot topics in Australia are fraud and scams, what's going to be happening in tranche 2, and raising Australia's profile on the inclusion on the FATF spectrum, because I believe Australia is running pretty low there, so we need to do something about that. There was some stress to that program by the regulator around education and the industry working together, so that's the public and the private sector coming together. And this particular RegTech Edge Showcase program that we're going to put on promises to bring some leading solutions to the forefront of mitigating AML CTF risks. So please do come along. We are also running a new range of roundtables and more intimate style events, and we are seeking sponsors to help us run those events on a whole variety of topics. So please do reach out to Nathan if you're interested to take part. And finally, I wanted to say thank you to all of our presenters and to all of you that tuned in today. It is with this community that we have built that we can showcase these opportunities, and actually goes to the very heart of one of the things that the association feels very passionately about, and that is protecting people. And we do that by enabling people who work in financial institutions and other regulated organisations to give them better tools with which to manage risks earlier, and to get better data to make better business decisions to benefit their customers and their shareholders and stakeholders. But also it's about protecting our mums and dads as they walk around in the world. They deserve to have trust in their interactions, and we really believe that RegTech helps build that trust profile. There's our contact details. Please reach out if you would like to know more about any of our programs, or you want to engage with us on a new program. Please do reach out and say hi. We'd love to talk to you. So I might call the proceedings to a close. We do hope to see you sometime again very, very soon, if not in person, almost certainly online. And thank you very much to Nathan, who sits behind the scenes here and makes these events run so seamlessly. Thank you very much for your time.